A Journey to the Center of the Earth. Chapter 7. Alone and Lost. I awoke on Sunday morning without any sense of hurry, not concerned with starting another day's travel. The grotto we were in was a vast and magnificent hall. The Hansbach flowed slowly along the grotto's granite floor. The water was now so far from its fiery source that it was cool enough to drink without waiting. After breakfast, my uncle went to work putting his notes in order. Upon our return to the upper regions, I want to make a map of our journey, he said. The map will be a cross-section of the Earth as discovered in our journey. Do you think you can do that accurately? I asked. I have been keeping charts of the directions and angles of our travel, he answered, and I am sure I made no mistakes. We have traveled 250 miles from the point of our departure. He looked down at his notes and made some more calculations. Then he added, and we have gone almost 50 miles in a downward direction. 50 miles? I cried. That is the entire thickness of the Earth's crust, according to scientists. I don't deny that, my uncle said. Then, at this depth, I added, according to all scientific laws, the temperature should be 1,500 degrees. Should be, said my uncle, but you see, my boy, that it is not so. For if it were 1,500 degrees, these granite rocks would be melted. So you see, as is usually the case, facts are overruling scientific theories. I agree, I said, but I am nevertheless surprised, for the actual temperature here is 27.6 degrees. Let me then draw a conclusion from these facts. Go ahead, said my uncle. Let us say that from where we are now, the depth of the surface of the center of the Earth is about 4,800 miles, I began. That's correct, my uncle said. And, I continued, we had traveled about 50 of those 4,800 miles, and we have taken 20 days to do it. Yes, he said, go on. And if we go on this way, traveling more horizontally than vertically, I concluded, it will take us about 5.5 years to get to the center of the Earth. My uncle had an objection. How? How do you know that this tunnel does not go straight into the Earth without any of the horizontal movement that cost us so much time earlier? I had no answer. And, he added, you forget another thing. Another man has successfully completed the trip. Why should he have succeeded if we are doomed to failure? Again, I had no answer, but I did have an objection. In the 16th century, when Arne Saknussemm had made his journey, neither the manometer nor the barometer had yet been discovered. Manometer, barometer. How then did he know that he had indeed reached the center of the Earth? I thought about this, but I did not voice an objection to my uncle. It would only have served to make him angry. So I decided to agree with him and follow him to whatever destiny he chose to lead me. After all, I had to admit that things had actually been going rather well, and that the goal was worth the hardships that we had so far endured. During the next 2 days after that Sunday's rest, the slopes became steeper. Here's a picture, wondering, did Saknussemm reach the center? During the next 2 weeks after that Sunday's rest, the slopes became steeper and more frightening. Some, in fact, were almost vertical, and we had to descend them with the use of ropes. But we made rapid progress, covering on some of those days 5 or 6 miles on our downward journey towards the center of the Earth. During those weeks, nothing of interest happened, but the next event that took place will remain in my memory forever. It is so terrible, in fact, that even now, as I think about it, my soul shudders, and my blood runs cold. It happened on the 7th of August. We were about 600 miles southeast of Iceland. Our continuous descent had taken us 90 miles into the bowels of the earth. Above our heads were nearly 100 miles of rocks, oceans, continents, towns, and living beings. On that memorable day, the tunnel had taken a nearly horizontal course. I had the lead and was carrying one of the lanterns. My uncle was second with another lantern, and Hans was trailing behind. I was busy examining the different layers of granite rock along the way and was so completely absorbed in my work that I paid no attention to anything else. Suddenly, I stopped and turned around to say something to my uncle and found that I was alone. Well, I thought to myself, I must have been walking too fast. Or perhaps my uncle and Hans has stopped to rest. The best thing I could do is go back and find them. So I retraced my steps for about 15 minutes. Rather uneasily, I paused and looked eagerly around. There was nobody in sight. I called out as loudly as possible, "Uncle! Hans!" The only response was the echo of my voice as it bounced off those terrible rock walls. "Uncle, uncle, 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 Hans, Hans." A cold shiver shook my belly, and a perspiration burst out upon my skin. "I must be calm," I said aloud in an effort to drive away my fears. I'm sure that I will find them. There cannot be two roads. I must go further back down the tunnel." I walked back through the tunnel for another half an hour. There was still no sign of either my uncle or Hans. My calls brought only the echo of my own words. At last I stopped. It was hard to realize that I was alone, that I had made a mistake and was lost. Come, I said to myself. There is only one road, and we must meet soon." But my voice was no longer sounding convincing, even in my own ear. There was no reason to panic. I still had the Hansbach. I would follow my faithful river back up the tunnel and find my way out if I had to. I stooped to plunge my hands into the pleasant waters of my little stream, but my hands hit only a hard, dusty road of granite. With horror, I realized that the stream I had been counting on to save me had completely disappeared.